Welcome to Intentional Conversations, conversations designed to inspire you, to ignite something inside of you, and to empower you to live a more intentional life that's full of meaning, fulfillment, and impact. Today, I'm joined by Christy Mann. Christy is on a mission to bring emotions back and make it okay. She was actually a guest on one of our first episodes because she's written a series of children's books called The Adventures of Lil Sass, which were directed at kids experiencing getting to know emotions. And of course, as with any really good children's book, there's always a really profound message, but it's very simple. And so as adults, we benefit. And so Christy was getting a lot of that feedback, and adults were wanting to have the same tools to apply to their life. So as any good leader, she heard it, and she's created an online offering to help support adults. So on today, we're talking all things emotion, how to witness emotion, how to understand emotion, how to move emotion through the body. So I'm really excited for this episode. Christy is always a light and has so many insights. I know that you're going to find so much value here. So come on in and let's get started. Christy, welcome. I'm so happy to have you back.
Melanie, thank you for having me back. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah. So Christy was on previously when we only were doing sort of the video intentional conversations, and she was talking about her books, The Adventures of Lil Sass, which are a children's book series. And so I'm so thrilled to have you back because you're on to your next evolution, which is helping adults. And so I'm really excited to dive in. But first, before we do, I like to ask everyone, what does the word intention mean to you? So I'd love to hear your answer.
Such a good question. I know it's the whole purpose of your show and your purpose. And I'm wondering what I said last time and if it will line up. So let me take a moment, connect to myself, and what do I have today? I think intention for me means being very grounded in oneself and clear in the reasons why I'm talking or doing something or creating something. So I think intention is about being very meaningful and conscious about, our time here and what we're up to.
Yes, I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
So let's jump in. So I'd love to understand, give us a little background as to why you felt called to create this program for adults to help us, because your mission is greater. It's about bringing emotions back and us being okay with emotions. So I'd love to hear what led you and what inspired you to create this online program specifically for adults.
That's great. So if your listeners from last time, and you mentioned it, The Adventures of Lil Sass is an emotional wellness children's book series. And last September, I launched 3 books, The Adventure of Sadness, The Adventure of Joy, The Adventure of Anger, and they can be found on Amazon. And I had a lot of really great feedback from adults, from parents, from teachers saying, I love these books. These books are for me, aren't they? I'm like, yeah, they really are. And, I say that I've gone through the kids to get to the adults because I really believe that children, for the most part, have a tremendous ability to be emotionally flexible and agile, and they allow themselves to have emotions. And what I'm wanting is for adults to be very conscious about their relationship to their own emotions and how it's projected onto their children in their lives. So the feedback from adults was, can you create more content for me? Because as a mom or as a dad or as a schoolroom teacher or just as a business leader, as a human, as an adult, I would like to go deeper into this conversation. And so what was born out of that is the Emotional Leadership Academy. And it's a 6-week virtual intensive. And where I can go into that in a second, but this was really created out of the feedback from fans of Lil Sass and from folks who read the books and thought, this is great. How do I go deeper in my emotional leadership journey?
Mhm. I love that. And I think that there's so many things here. Like, first of all, I want to say that I love that you started with the children's books, because I think about this all the time. Like, I look at children's books as I get them for friends having babies or family members that are having babies. And some of these children's books are very profound with a very simple message, right? And that's exactly what your books, those children's books, did. And so I think that, yes, of course, as adults, we benefit from them as well. So I love that piece. But then what I really love about who you are and what you do is you're listening to your audience, and it's like you're listening, this is what's needed. And you and I agree on this, that this conversation is needed for people that aren't even asking for it, right? Like, and I say I would include myself in this. Like, we kind of talked about this last time. For me, this lifetime for me is really all about getting comfortable with my emotions, feeling my emotions, being able to express them in a responsible way, in a conscious way. But so I think that you're listening and then creating something. And just from an impact point of view, I love that. And I'm so grateful that you've done this.
Aw, thank you for saying that. You know, one of my biggest lessons of all of this is that, and I think anybody who creates, and which we all are in a certain way, is that whatever our message is or our mission or quest, it's coming through us. It's not us. It's really like we're a conduit for this thing to be born so that others can benefit from it and learn from it and grow from it. And so I've really taken it to heart that I have to listen. And when I was first getting the books out in the world, I was following kind of an old template as far as marketing. I was doing library readings and school events and schlepping my books all around. I was living in Los Angeles at the time, you know, schlepping my books everywhere and leaning on friends and asking for their support, because no matter how big or small, each event took the same amount of back end work and then implementation the day of. And I just thought, well, you know what? There's a different way to do this, because this isn't like in the 90s and the 80s, and like times have shifted with technology. And so I just started to listen. I started to slow down. I started to ask for more feedback. People are always willing to give feedback. They were giving it without me asking, but I got even more curious. And I decided just to stop the path I was on, because it felt like it wasn't flowing and that I needed a little bit of a redirect. And so this is where I am now. And I will continue to listen, because this is, I realize, my life's work. And not overnight are we going to have every household having a conversation about what does it mean to be an emotional being. You know, it's not going to be overnight that schools bring in these tools and this idea of emotional leadership into their curriculum. So, you know, I hope to be talking to you for many, many more years about this. And I do hope it spreads, you know, more quickly, because now we have offerings for adults and children.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And my sense of it is just in the past like 10 years, you can see the evolution of where people are opening up to newer ways, which it shouldn't be newer, but that's how it is. They're open to it. And so they're yearning for more of it. And so again, having programs like yours, it's like you're filling a void, you know, because let's face it, there's a lot of online programs which are equally amazing, but I think having some that really goes at like sort of a deeper level and having that emotional wellness and everything that you're including in it, I just think it will benefit every single one of us, whether we realize we are inept in feeling our emotions or we feel like we've mastered them. I think that it would help. It's going to help so many.
Ditto. I'm with
Yeah.
you.
So cool. So I want to kind of like talk about what is your sense of, as a culture, it tends to be where we fear emotion, right? Or we resist emotion. I'd love to get your insights and what you believe in the research and the work you've done. Why is that?
Yes. Okay. So I have a couple different perspectives on this. One is it goes deep into our conditioning, and most doesn't really matter which culture you've come from. There has been some early conditioning that keep a stiff upper lip. That's a really kind of a British saying, but there's, in most cultures, we get messages as youth to push down, suppress the emotion, just pretend like everything's okay. And when I started to like research this more and try to understand it more, I mean, I can get really out there with this. I mean, I can go into the patriarchy around this, but like, I believe part of it was really to cut us off from our true essence. So the conditioning started, you know, well before our grandparents and our grandparents' grandparents. I mean, this is so in our DNA to not allow the emotion to flow that I don't even know if we could track back to like the first time, you know, in our evolution that it started. But when I've done research on the primal purposes of emotions, I have been finding this fascinating. And this is part of what people will learn in the online course. Because I think if we understand the science behind things, it allows us to be more open to exploring the emotional self, because we get that we were designed this way. So I'll give an example of the emotion of sadness. So the primal purpose of sadness, and I think most people resonate with this. I know when I'm sad, I feel separate. There's a way that I feel separate. And the primary purpose of sadness was to let mothers know when they were separate from their young. It was an indicator like something's off, your young's not around you. Because remember, like mammals wouldn't have all the same emotional intelligence that we have, or the same consciousness levels that we have in this day and age. So the primal purpose was to be like, I am separate, and to really understand and scour your surroundings to reconnect and find the young. In modern age, what's happened, unfortunately, is we're so disconnected from that idea or even that primal reasoning that we feel separate and we numb as a culture, right? Whether it's through social media, overworking, food, sex, drugs, pharmaceuticals, we feel that separateness and we fill it with something else, because it is so painful to feel separate, because it is our natural birthright to feel connected. We're hardwired for connection, as our friend Brene Brown, who is just such a leader in front around this type of work. Mm-hmm. So I believe that, it started, many generations ago, and that we've become so disconnected from the primal purposes that our rational mind won't even allow it. I could say so much more, but I'll stop.
No, I love that. So, okay. So then in going with that, I'm glad you brought that up. And I can see how a lot of times, and this is for all of us with a number of things, our primitive brain is the one making all the decisions, right? And so it's like, in today's modern age, perhaps that's not the truth. But so when someone let's go with the sadness. So someone feels sad, so we feel sad. So then what is the purpose of that emotion? Like, what is your view? Like, I have a thought, but I'd love to hear what you believe. Like, so the sadness is showing up, and then again, I agree, helping people understand it, I think it makes it easier. We like sort of a three-dimensional reality where we can see something and understand it versus trusting it. But so we feel sadness, and then what is it there? What do we do with that?
It's great. So again, the primal purpose is that it alerts us that we're separate, and then what we're supposed to do with that is connect. So it can look different in this day and age. It might mean I am disconnected from myself, so I need to spend some time connecting to the parts of myself that are feeling this emotion of sadness. It could mean I need to connect to a friend, and it could mean that I need to get a hug. It could be, I just need connection. And again, this isn't about suppressing the sadness. We can experience our sadness in connection, in connection with ourselves. And so one of the things that through um, uh, a lot of the studying and training that I've done is to observe, oh, there is sadness. Instead of going into, oh, I am sad, and like really letting us take us down, and kind of like getting lost in the emotion. So this is the piece that I really want people to get. This is when I say to have a responsible relationship. I want us to feel the sadness and also be observing it, so that we don't like, I want to surf it, ride it like we're on a surfboard. Mm-hmm. So when I experience sadness, or I'm working with clients, so there is sadness, and you allow the sadness to come through. Perhaps the sadness has a message for you. You give it a voice. So this is the method of Gestalt. This is a type of therapy, and you give the sadness a voice. What is the wisdom of the sadness? I'll tell you, for me, often when I am experiencing sadness, it's because I am disconnected from myself. I have been filling my calendar too much. I've been moving too much. I've been extroverting with the world and my external world, but I haven't connected to myself. So there's younger parts of me that are sad and want that connection. So now I can be with those younger parts of myself and self-soothe and give those parts what they need. Some days I might just want to call a friend and be like, can you just tell me it's going to be okay? Or maybe there is something I'm working through where I do want professional help. I want to work with a coach or a therapist. And that's an option too.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to just add, I agree. Like sometimes it's connection to self, to others, but also like something I found in my life, like if I'm not feeling a sense of connection, I'm feeling a sadness or a loneliness, like, and maybe it's not about connecting with people. Maybe I've connected with people too much, or maybe I've had too much alone time. It could be, it's about me going to swim in the ocean or going for a walk in the park, or, you know what I'm saying? Like connecting to nature.
I love that. So it really is, it's like, if we think about it, when I experience sadness, what I do is connect, and it doesn't matter. We think connection, obviously, that we think it means other person, but I love what you're saying, because the nature is going to have us connect to ourselves. If the nature is going to have us connect to, it's going to really ground us. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's great. So I have a question. So before someone gets to the place of the awareness around, okay, let me witness this sadness, there's this sort of gap, right? Where a lot of us, and I put myself in this category, even now I'm a little better, but as I said, I'm making progress, but I have a long journey ahead of me. But like, so we have this gap, and it's almost like whether we're aware of it or not, we're like, okay, how much do I want to let myself feel? Sadness is a hard one. Sadness, loneliness, like those are tough ones to be with, right? So any insight around that we can work through in order to get to, now I'm just witnessing it.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? Like allowing yourself, because I believe you have to really feel it to then be able to witness it and understand it.
Completely. This is it's a journey, right? And we're all on it, and the people are at different stages of the journey. And I think the first step, and this would be true for anything, is the awareness. So recognizing, oh, I have emotions and I don't let myself feel them. I'll give an example. So I do a lot of training and development inside organizations. And in organizations, there is such a huge taboo of showing emotions. It's really been suppressed, and a lot of labels if someone does show their emotions. The purpose of our training, as you know, I work with CTI, the Coactive Training Institute, and we're developing leaders, but a big part of this is developing their emotional awareness. Because we believe that leaders have emotional awareness and they lead from their heart. They don't suppress their emotions. It's part of what makes them inspiring to join their journey. And so the first step is acknowledging I have emotions and I don't let myself feel them. In this classroom, so many people, like an emotion would come up and they'd say, oh gosh, oh no, I'm showing it, like, oh, I'm so weak. And there was so much judgment. of the emotion coming up, and to do it in front of others, and especially your colleagues. And oh my gosh, Melanie, if I could shift anything in the planet, it would be losing that judgment of, oh my gosh, my emotions are coming up, to like, oh, this is important, so I'm leaking. Oh, this is important, so I'm like, I have fire in me. Or this is important, so I'm so excited, I can hardly contain my energy. I mean, I'm like, now I just, this is about us waking up. You know, if we can't accept the fact that having tears, feeling sadness, feeling loneliness, feeling anger, feeling rage, feeling joy, feeling connection is part of our experience, it's part of why we're here, then, you know, we're going to just keep repeating the same patterns, the same behaviors. We're going to have the same relationships. We're not going to evolve. So, I mean, I'm not answering your question completely.
No, but I
I'm
love that. I think
really
that that's
excited.
yeah, no, I love that. I think that that's so important to highlight it. And that's what we may have said this because I talk about this a lot. Like the point of being human is to have all of these experiences. And this is how we learn. This is how we grow. This is how we evolve. I was just at a little workshop and the leader was saying something. And basically she said, listen, if I had like two different options for you, and one was you could, let's just say you live, I don't know, 95 years, this lifetime, this earth, right here and now. And you could basically be comfortable, like, you know, live a happy life, like things would be great, but it would be very even tone. Like, and that's just it for like 80 plus 90 years, right? Or I could give you another option and you could have like I love the way you described it earlier with like the waves. Like you could have like waves, like you could feel bliss in one moment and then like grief in another, and then feel the fire of like that anger and rage and passion, and then feel all of that for 80 or 90 years. It's a long time, people. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, what would you choose? And I think that, listen, there were some people who were like, I would take the other. That's totally fine. For me personally, like, I wouldn't choose that. You know what I'm saying? For me, I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to be able to um, feel deep grief or sadness without numbing it, without stuffing it, without running from it. That is my prayer for myself, for my soul this lifetime. So for me, I want to, and I think to some extent, in order to feel true bliss and joy, you kind of have to know like what the other feels like. And it's like having the range.
I love that.
Mhm.
I've got goosebumps everywhere. That's my wish for everyone too. And it is the range of our human experience. It's our entitlement to experience that. We've become so cut off from it that we are afraid as a species to drop into that range. And then we end up living this like life in a box, you know. And if I stop to really think about it, how much we've boxed ourselves in. We live inside boxes. We drive in a box, to work inside a box, to look at a box all day. You know, not everybody has that construct, but that is a lot of people's construct in the West. And if you think about that, what is that actually doing to our energetic bodies, our emotional bodies, our physical bodies? When we're so boxed in, how can it be safe to go outside of that? You know, we need leaders and examples of people who are leading with their hearts open, who are bringing their emotions in a responsible way to move missions forward, you know. And that's what this is all about. That's why I'm calling it emotional leadership.
Yes, and absolutely. And I want to speak to that because I agree. The box, like that's part of my own personal mission because I was culturally boxed in. And I think we need to wake up and leave the box, right? And to some extent, like you can feel it even as we're talking. Like I know I can feel it in my body. As soon as I start to say it, I can feel something come up for me. You almost need that emotion, that energy and motion to bust through something, to get out of that box, that very limited, right?
Yes, we need more energy so we can box out of the constructs that have been placed on us. And emotion that's all it is. It's emotion, energy in motion. And when we can start to reframe it as, oh, there is sadness, let me be with it and sit with it, and like, get some tools so I feel safe and comfortable doing that. Then we can start to create more energy. And that means we can start to bust out of the boxes and really define more intentionally why we're here and what we're up to and how we're going to contribute while we're here.
Mhm.
I had another point, but I lost it.
It'll come back. So
Yeah.
I do have a question. So
Yeah.
because we kind of talked about it, and I know you and I we're females. So like we talk about it. I see a lot of the work I do is with females. And so in terms of what you had talked about earlier around the conditioning and like the things of that we were suppressed, or perhaps if we expressed too much, we were burned at the stake. Like there are all these things, right? So with women, it's about being able to express and to be all of us and to let that energy come through. I'm curious, do you also work with men? Is this program for men? And what is it that you see is, what do men need in terms of working with emotion? Because I would imagine we have different emotional bodies. Is that correct?
We do. We do
Okay.
have a different emotional bodies, and and we've had different conditioning around emotions, uh, right, but we've all been suppressed around it. So that's where we're in the same boat. And I think with my experience, yes, the program is for men, and I do work with men, and I have seen men embrace this work wholeheartedly, with the awareness of knowing that if they're more in tune with their emotions, it makes them a better leader, father, partner, community leader, whatever it is. And so um, I actually, if I really think about that, Melanie, I think we're all in this together. We've all been suppressed in different ways. And I actually sometimes have more, like even more heartbreak or compassion for men, or the male around this, because of how much they've had to suppress around sadness and their anger. I mean, it's part of what's distorted the masculine energy, is that, and the feminine energy, is that we haven't been able, as a race, we haven't allowed ourselves to express these emotions in their wholeheartedness. So my perspective is that anyone can benefit from it. And we need to create safe circles and safe spaces for men just as much as women, to have this conversation, to gather tools, and to express their emotions. 100%.
Yeah, and I think just on a side note, I believe that like women really need women and men need men in terms of like having group work to like sort of reflect and mirror the different things that, because what men are going through and what they have gone through is a little bit different. Yes, there's a theme of suppression for all of us, but like it's a little bit, there's a little different tone. And so having, like, I would just encourage, and I say this all the time, like I think every man should join a men's group and every woman should have some sort of a woman's group. That's just,
Most definitely. And the men and women need to come together to do the work too. It's like steps, and because we need to mirror back the feminine and have the masculine mirrored back to us, because again, we're all in this together. We've all been wounded.
yeah, absolutely. All right. So one of the things I kind of want to talk about is, um, so you're giving people tools, right? Like how to have more emotional wellness and responsibility. And you're teaching people how to work with the emotions as they come up. I want to just check in a minute, like around, so the emotions that are in our bodies from this life, past lives, generations, right? Like that emotion that's in the body, how can someone start to release that in a way, right? You're giving us tools to move forward. So now we know when we feel sadness, here's kind of like some options, some ways to work with that. But what
Right.
about stuff that's stuck, and perhaps we're making decisions from that stuck, or it's even, a little dis-ease within the body?
That's great. So one of the things in the course, I'm a Kundalini yoga and meditation teacher. So I'm going to be bringing forward some really fundamental kriyas, which means like posture sets that specifically work with different emotions to move the stuck emotion that is somewhere in our energetic body or in our emotional body or in our physical body. And that will be, that will be really, really important. And then embodiment work. So really embodiment work is dancing and moving the body in different ways than what we're used to. Again, going back to the box analogy. So if we're just constantly moving the same way, then things are definitely stuck. So we'll be bringing forward Kundalini techniques and so Kundalini yoga and meditation techniques and embodiment techniques that allow stuck emotions to move through. And then these are practices that people can, my hope is that they make part of their daily ritual. And even just like during the day, 5 minutes, get up and just move around your body a little bit differently, or do a quick, this is called the breath of fire. It's a quick Kundalini meditation. These are game changers, Melanie, for people to have a healthier relationship with their emotions.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. That's amazing. So let's kind of jump in to give us a little bit of information on the course. Like, who is it for? What can they expect? Kind of walk us through what it looks like.
Great. So it is for anybody. This is for adults at this stage. Any adult that's interested in having a healthier, happier, more responsible relationship with their emotions. So they probably have an awareness that, oh, yeah, I have emotions and I don't always let myself feel them, or I'm afraid to feel them because I don't have tools and I'm not really sure how to like do that. So it's for those folks that want more facility and capability and tools around what I'm calling their emotional leadership. It is 6 weeks. It's online, so you can do it from the comforts of your home and in your jogging pants, your sweatpants, or if you're going to be at work, because it will be midday on East Coast time, then hopefully you can get a private room at your office, or go to your car when it's not driving and have some privacy. We will, just like what we were talking about before, we will explore the primary emotions of joy, anger, and sadness. There will be the context setting, talking about the science behind each emotion so that we can start to really intellectually understand, which I believe will then help each individual go deeper into allowing themselves to feel the emotion. So we'll start with the very first session is all about setting the ground rules for the 6 weeks, how we'll work together. I will be doing some training of Kundalini yoga and meditation, some training of the embodiment so that people start with tools right away. Week 1, 2, and 3, we've got sadness, anger, and joy. And as mentioned, we'll go into the science, and each emotion I'll be offering up a tool, and the participants will witness me working with some of the participants on the call to see how the tool is used in real time. And they'll get an opportunity to do some individual reflection, ask any questions, and practice using the tool themselves on the call so that they can leave the call with a new tool, greater awareness of that specific emotion. And there'll be assignments in between each week so that everyone will be practicing what we're learning, and we'll come back each week and go deeper into our learning experience. The 5th week, I have a colleague of mine, Sunday Phillips, who is a Kundalini yoga meditation Pilates teacher. She's an embodiment expert. So she's going to come and really help us connect to our physical and emotional and energetic bodies through the physical body. So we'll have like a whole session with her, which I'm thrilled about because she's a dynamo. And then the last session, like any good, coach or leadership development program, we want to lock this in. We want people to walk away with a plan. So it wasn't just, a 6-week experience, but that they have clear action items and action steps with how I'm going to keep developing my emotional leadership moving forward. So that's what's going to be, that's what's going to happen. There'll be a private online group with this specific cohort can interact and share, where we'll be sharing articles and tools. And if somebody has to miss a week, we will record it so that they can get that session again. And throughout it, I'll be sprinkling different tools so that people walk away with a really awesome new toolkit around their emotional leadership.
Mm. I love that. That sounds so, I love what you're sort of like hitting all the really important pieces, right? Like the teaching, the coaching, and then the empowering, like with tools, like, because we're not just looking to band-aid something or to inspire you. We're looking to empower you to take this and to incorporate it into your everyday life. And then I love you giving that sort of the private group, having the sense of community, because going back to when we started around the sadness, a lot of times I find, like for me, now I have a lot of people that I can lean into. But back when I started this whole journey and I lived in a very cultural world, there was no one that I could be like, oh my God, I'm so sad, or my heart's breaking, or I don't know what's happening here. So I think that giving people that community and that connection is such a gift.
Thanks, Melanie. I didn't say this, I think maybe the last time we spoke, but the reason why I'm doing this is because I struggled so much with my own, and I'm still like learning and growing. And, when I was 13, my father went to jail and my whole world turned upside down. And I suppressed my emotions as a young girl. And it wasn't until my late 20s that I started to explore my emotions. And so the past 13 years, I've been learning, I've been healing, I've been collecting tools, I've studied different modalities, and it's just gifted my life so much to be able to feel more safe with my emotions, to not numb myself or run from them. And I just want to share that with others, because I want people to live a life where they feel alive and that they feel awake and that they feel fulfilled, and that's more of my personal purpose of why I'm doing this. They say, make your mess your message, and I think about my younger self, and even all through my 20s. I mean, I did not have a healthy relationship with my emotions, and I numbed in unhealthy ways. And I was so, so deeply sad and so, so angry, like so much rage. And I still have all those things, but now I know how to be with them. And so it just feels more rich and safe.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. So I have one like sort of quick question referent to the course, like having joy, anger, sadness.
Yeah.
Are those sort of, was that just kind of, I mean, there's only so much time. So what was the reason for having those three emotions and working on those three emotions?
Yeah, those three emotions are really seen as the primary emotions. And they're also, if you look, check out the Lil Sass books, they're the three emotions of the book. So there's a way that I'm like creating like a template, right? Building off of what the kids and the parents and the teachers are talking with the kids, and now the adults are going to get this experience. My vision is that we'll launch further modules that will follow a similar path template to what I explained, but we'll go and explore different emotions. And I've had I did a poll, and people want to go deeper into jealousy. They want to go deeper into loneliness, which maybe not so much an emotion, but it's an experience we feel, that sadness. And love is an emotion that people have asked to go deeper into. So that's what's coming. Is there will be future modules that explore different emotions and with a similar twist, but I'll be listening and learning as I go and iterating the offering and what we're bringing to the world around this mission to bring emotions back and make them okay.
Love that. Awesome. Cool. So, we're going to link to all of this in the notes so people can find you, can register for the course, can get more information. But before we leave, I would love for you to share one really tangible tip that someone who's listening or watching can do right now, like right now, that's really easy, that sets them up for success, to help them to be okay with all they're feeling and to work through it, however that looks like?
I hope this isn't becoming trite, but this is the simplest thing that we all have, but that we don't tend to do. So if everyone would just take a deep breath in and out right now and release it. And just take a moment and notice what's different from 1 second ago. What's different for you, Melanie, from taking that deep breath?
I actually feel more in my body. Like I could actually feel the releasing. It actually pushed it out, and it allowed me to like ground more in.
You know, it's free. It's what we're doing anyhow, but not consciously or well. And it is part of what will allow us to really have emotional leadership, is if we breathe the way we're designed to breathe. So throughout our days, just whenever, just take a deep breath and see what it shifts and what it brings in.
Yeah, I love that. I forget about breath. I usually have the beads that I wear. I have an aquamarine because it reminds me to breathe. And it's exactly like you say. It's free. It's free. It's available to all of us. Like it's a way to really get us to the present, to get into our bodies, to relax. So yeah, love that.
Completely.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks for having me, Melanie.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you coming on. And I just really, you know, I believe that so many of us need to be in a place where we're listening and we're taking action and having that impact. And I can see that so much in you with what you said, listening to your audience, but also truly to watch someone you've done a lot of work, you've invested in yourself, a lot of programs. And a lot of times, many of us can get lost in just like absorbing, and we're not contributing. And so thank you for taking so much of what you've learned and what you've studied, and now you're applying it and you're helping so many. Like truly, it's inspiring to witness. And I just thank you so much for that.
Thanks for saying that. I feel that in my heart. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for the acknowledgement. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you. Thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah. And to all your listeners, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining Christy and me in this conversation. This conversation is so needed. Whether we feel like we've mastered our emotions, maybe we don't know what an emotion is. Emotions are simply energy in motion. And the work that Christy's doing, whether you're a seasoned professional at dealing with emotions or you're new, this work is so needed. And I love that Christy is taking and combining so much of her experience and her skill set. And she's created this really comprehensive, easy to learn program that helps us and supports us and teaches us, that gives us that community, and most importantly is empowering us with tools. This is not just about like fixing it or understanding it or being inspired. It's about taking something and then applying it to our life to help us as we understand that emotions are okay. When we feel something, we don't need to stuff it. We don't need to numb it. We don't need to run from it. We can simply allow it, let it guide us, and it will move through, because again, energy in motion, emotion. So huge thank you to Christy for coming on and sharing so much of her heart and her expertise with all of us. Thank you for sticking around. We'd love to hear from you. Take a screenshot and tag Christy and me on social media and let us know what were your biggest insights from today's conversation. You are just as much a part of this as we are, and we want to hear from you. We actually learn and we grow together. And especially a topic like emotions, the more we talk about this and express it, the more okay we get with it. All right, thanks again for joining us, and I'll see you on the next Intentional Conversations. Until then, have a beautiful, magical, and an intentional week.